The sun beat down on the dusty plains, reflecting harshly off the weathered wood of Jebediah's ranch house. Jebediah, a man carved from the same hardscrabble land, squinted as he surveyed his property. It stretched out before him, a testament to years of back-breaking labor, yet it offered little comfort these days. The laughter that once echoed across the fields was now replaced by the mournful sigh of the wind. It had been 3 years since Sarah, his beloved wife, had succumbed to the fever. 3 years of waking up to an empty bed, of cooking meals for one, of staring at the horizon with a heart full of lead. The ranch, once a vibrant hub of activity, had slowly begun to mirror his own desolation. Weeds choked the flowerbed Sarah had so carefully tended. The paint peeled from the barn, and the fences sagged like tired shoulders. Jebediah was a good man, honest and hardworking. He knew how to mend a fence, deliver a calf, and coax life from the arid soil. But he didn't know how to mend a broken heart. The townsfolk offered their condolences, their well-meaning platitudes about time healing all wounds. But time, it seemed, had only deepened the ache. Each day was a repetition of the last, feeding the livestock, mending fences, and battling the loneliness that gnawed at him like a persistent coyote. He missed Sarah's gentle touch, her warm smile, the way she made even the simplest meal feel like a feast. He missed her stories, her songs, and the comfortable silence they shared as they watched the sunset paint the sky in fiery hues. He tried dating some of the women in town, but it never felt right. They weren't Sarah, and besides, he felt like a ghost, still tethered to the memory of his wife. He was going through the motions of living, but his spirit was trapped in the past. Ranching was hard enough without a broken heart weighing you down. He needed help. He needed a cook, someone to care for the chickens, and maybe, just maybe, someone to chase away the shadows that clung to every corner of his life. He knew the town auction was coming up. Maybe, just maybe, there would be someone there who could lighten his load. The town of Harmony Creek buzzed with anticipation. The annual auction was more than just a marketplace. It was a social event, a chance to catch up with neighbors, share gossip, and size up the newcomers who had drifted in seeking a fresh start. Banners flapped in the breeze, strung between the general store and the saloon, proclaiming, "Harmony Creek welcomes you." Tables groaned under the weight of pies, cakes, and lemonade, all vying for attention. Children darted through the crowd, their laughter echoing amidst the lively chatter. The auctioneer, a portly man with a booming voice and a sweat-soaked brow, stood on a makeshift stage constructed from stacked crates. He surveyed the crowd with a practiced eye, his gaze lingering on potential bidders. Farmers in their Sunday best, shopkeepers with shrewd expressions, and young couples dreaming of building a home all jostled for a good view. This year's auction promised a varied selection: sturdy farmhands, skilled carpenters, seamstresses with nimble fingers, and even a traveling salesman with a trunk full of curiosities. For the men and women seeking employment, it was a chance to showcase their talents and secure a position. For those looking to hire, it was an opportunity to find reliable help. But, like every year, undercurrents of prejudice and whispers of judgment laced through the proceedings. Jebediah arrived early, parking his dusty truck at the edge of town. He wasn't looking for romance, he told himself. He just needed someone to ease the burden of running the ranch. He stood at the back of the crowd, his hat pulled low, observing the scene with a detached air. He recognized familiar faces, nodded politely to acquaintances, but kept mostly to himself. The festive atmosphere felt foreign to him, a stark contrast to the quiet solitude he had grown accustomed to. He felt a pang of guilt, as if he were betraying Sarah's memory by even being there. Still, the thought of a warm meal and a clean house was tempting. He resolved to keep an open mind and see what the day held. He leaned against a post, the weathered wood rough against his back, and waited for the auction to begin in earnest. The air was thick with the scent of dust, sweat, and the sweet aroma of baking pies, a potent mix that stirred both his senses and his apprehension. The auction progressed, showcasing a variety of hopefuls. Jebediah watched with a detached interest as farmhands flexed their muscles, seamstresses displayed their needlework, and carpenters boasted of their skills. He saw a few faces he recognized from neighboring ranches, their eyes gleaming with competitive spirit. But none of them seemed quite right. None of them sparked any flicker of interest within him. Then the auctioneer cleared his throat, his voice taking on a slightly strained tone. "And now, folks, we have Clementine." Clementine stepped onto the stage, her face flushed, her eyes downcast. She was a large woman, her figure generously proportioned, her dress straining at the seams. A ripple of whispers went through the crowd, a mix of amusement and disdain. Jebediah, hidden in the back, felt a pang of sympathy for her. She stood awkwardly, her hands clasped tightly in front of her, as the auctioneer began his spiel. "Clementine here is new to town, looking for honest work. She's a strong woman, good with her hands, and eager to please." He paused, his eyes scanning the crowd. "Now, what am I bid for Clementine?" Silence. The silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable. People shifted their feet, avoided eye contact, and pretended to be engrossed in other things. The auctioneer cleared his throat again, his smile faltering. "Anyone? Surely someone can use a strong pair of hands." Still no one bid. Jebediah watched Clementine's face crumple, her eyes filling with tears. He saw the humiliation etched on her features, the pain of being judged and found wanting. He recognized that pain. He knew what it was like to feel like an outsider, to be weighed down by grief and loneliness. He saw beyond her size, beyond the judgments of the crowd, and saw a flicker of kindness in her eyes, a vulnerability that resonated with his own. The whispers grew louder, more cruel. "Too big," someone muttered. "She'll eat you out of house and home." Another snickered. Something snapped within Jebediah. He couldn't stand to watch her be humiliated any longer. He didn't know why, but he felt compelled to act. He straightened his back, took a deep breath, and raised his hand. $1, he said, his voice clear and steady, cutting through the murmur of the crowd. All eyes turned to him, a mixture of surprise and disbelief on their faces. Jebediah simply met their gaze, his expression resolute. The auctioneer, momentarily stunned, quickly recovered. $1 bid. Do I hear two? The auctioneer's call hung in the air, unanswered. The silence was broken only by the shuffling of feet and the barely suppressed gasps of the onlookers. All eyes remained fixed on Jebediah, a mixture of disbelief and curiosity swirling in their gazes. He stood firm, his jaw set, refusing to back down from his impulsive act. He wasn't sure why he'd done it, but he couldn't shake the feeling that it was the right thing to do. The auctioneer, regaining his composure, tried to inject some enthusiasm into his voice. $1. Going once, going twice. He paused, scanning the crowd one last time. Sold. To Jebediah Montgomery, for $1. A collective murmur swept through the crowd. Jebediah Montgomery, the quiet widower, the man who had kept to himself since Sarah's passing, had just bought the fat woman at auction. It was the most excitement Harmony Creek had seen in months. Clementine looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. A flicker of hope, fragile as a newborn bird, fluttered within her. She couldn't believe it. Someone, anyone, had actually wanted her. She looked at Jebediah, trying to decipher the expression on his face. Was it pity? Kindness? She couldn't tell. Jebediah walked towards the stage, his boots kicking up dust. He avoided eye contact with Clementine, feeling a sudden wave of awkwardness wash over him. What had he done? He hadn't planned this. He just wanted to help. Now, he was stuck with a woman he knew nothing about, a woman who was likely as surprised and confused as he was. He reached the stage and offered Clementine a hand. She hesitated for a moment, then took it, her fingers trembling slightly. Jebediah helped her down, the unexpected contact sending a jolt through him. Her hand was soft, surprisingly gentle. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Jebediah simply nodded, unsure of what to say. He led her towards his truck, the crowd parting to make way. Whispers followed them, snippets of conversations that stung Clementine's ears. "Poor Jebediah," one woman said. He's lost his mind, another added. Jebediah ignored them, focusing on getting Clementine safely into the truck. He closed the door, shutting out the prying eyes and cruel remarks. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. He looked at Clementine, who was staring straight ahead, her face pale. "We should get going," he said, his voice gruff. He started the engine, and the truck rumbled to life, leaving the curious onlookers and their whispered judgments behind. As they drove out of town, Jebediah couldn't help but wonder what he had gotten himself into, and what Clementine thought of it all. The drive to Jebediah's ranch was long and silent. Clementine stared out the window, watching the landscape blur past. The fields of Harmony Creek slowly gave way to rolling hills and vast, open plains. She tried to imagine what her life would be like here, on this isolated ranch with a man she barely knew. Jebediah, his gaze fixed on the road, stole occasional glances at Clementine. He still wasn't sure what to say to her. He cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "It's not much, but it's home," he said, gesturing towards the sprawling property in the distance. As they pulled up to the ranch house, Clementine's heart sank a little. The place looked worn and neglected, a far cry from the tidy farm she had seen closer to town. Weeds grew rampant in the yard, the paint was peeling from the walls, and the porch sagged precariously. Jebediah parked the truck and got out, opening the door for Clementine. She stepped out cautiously, her eyes taking in the surroundings. She could feel the weight of Jebediah's loneliness pressing down on the place, a palpable sadness that permeated the air. "I'll show you to your room," Jebediah said, his voice flat. He led her inside the house, which was sparsely furnished and filled with shadows. The air was thick with dust and the faint scent of wood smoke. He showed her to a small, plainly decorated room at the back of the house. It contained a narrow bed, a rickety dresser, and a small window overlooking the barn. "It's not much, but it's clean," he said, avoiding her gaze. Clementine nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. It was smaller and more run down than she had hoped, but she wasn't about to complain. She knew she was lucky to have any place at all. "Supper's at 6, Jebediah said, turning to leave. "If you need anything." He trailed off, unsure what to say. "Thank you, Mr. Montgomery," Clementine said, her voice soft but firm. "I appreciate you giving me a chance." Jebediah hesitated for a moment, then nodded and left the room. Clementine closed the door behind him and leaned against it, taking a deep breath. She knew this wasn't going to be easy. The ranch was in disrepair, Jebediah was a grieving widower, and the townspeople likely thought she was a charity case. But Clementine was determined to make the best of it. She was a hard worker, and she was determined to prove her worth. She would clean the house, tend the garden, and do whatever she could to ease Jebediah's burden. Maybe, just maybe, she could even bring a little bit of light back into his life. She opened her small bag and began to unpack, a quiet resolve settling in her heart. She was here to stay, and she would not disappoint him, or herself. The next morning, Clementine was up before dawn. She found Jebediah in the barn, already tending to the livestock. He seemed surprised to see her, his brow furrowing slightly. "I thought I'd help out," she said, her voice hesitant. Jebediah shrugged. "Suit yourself. There's plenty to do." He pointed towards a pile of hay. "Start with that." Clementine didn't hesitate. She grabbed a pitchfork and began to work, her movements surprisingly efficient. Jebediah watched her, his initial skepticism slowly fading. She was stronger than she looked, and she didn't complain, even as the sun climbed higher and the work grew harder. That evening, Clementine took over the cooking. Jebediah had been subsisting on beans and biscuits for far too long, and the kitchen was a disaster. Clementine, with a few deft movements, transformed the space. She scrubbed the counters, swept the floor, and started preparing a meal that filled the house with a mouth-watering aroma. Jebediah, drawn by the tantalizing scent, wandered into the kitchen. He watched, mesmerized, as Clementine moved about the room, chopping vegetables, stirring pots, and humming softly to herself. He hadn't realized how much he missed a home-cooked meal. The food was delicious, a far cry from his usual fare. Clementine had prepared a hearty stew, cornbread, and a simple apple pie. Jebediah ate in silence, savoring each bite. "This is good," he admitted, finally breaking the silence. Clementine smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Thank you, Mr. Montgomery." As the days passed, Jebediah discovered more of Clementine's hidden talents. She had a green thumb, and the neglected garden began to flourish under her care. She coaxed life back into the withered plants, and soon, the yard was bursting with color. She also had a remarkable way with animals. The horses seemed calmer around her, the chickens laid more eggs, and even the grumpy old barn cat, Whiskers, allowed her to pet him. Jebediah watched in amazement as Clementine soothed a colicky foal with gentle words and a warm hand. He had never seen anything like it. He began to rely on her, not just for the chores, but for her quiet presence and her unwavering kindness. The ranch was slowly coming back to life, and so was he. He still missed Sarah, but Clementine's presence had eased the sharp edges of his grief. He was starting to feel like he could breathe again. He was starting to feel like he could live again. He realized that Clementine was more than just hired help. She was a gift, a blessing he never expected. He was beginning to see her, really see her, not just as the fat woman from the auction, but as Clementine, a woman of remarkable strength, kindness, and hidden talents. And he was starting to feel something he hadn't felt in a very long time: hope. Sometimes, as Jebediah watched Clementine tending the garden or humming in the kitchen, a memory of Sarah would surface, sharp and vivid as a lightning strike. He'd see Sarah's face, her slender frame, her elegant hands arranging flowers. Sarah, who had been so graceful, so refined, so different from Clementine. Asterisk flashback asterisk Jebediah and Sarah, young and in love, were planting roses in the same garden Clementine now tended. Sarah, delicate and precise, carefully placed each seedling in the ground, while Jebediah, rough and impatient, dug the holes. They laughed, their voices intertwining with the chirping of the birds. Sarah wore a white dress, pristine and untouched by dirt, and her hair was perfectly coiffed. He remembered Sarah's meticulousness, her attention to detail, her love for all things beautiful. She had transformed the ranch house into a haven of elegance, filling it with antique furniture, delicate china, and embroidered linens. Everything had been just so. Clementine, on the other hand, was practical and unfussy. She preferred sturdy furniture, simple dishes, and comfortable clothes. She wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty, and her laughter was boisterous and unrestrained. Asterisk flashback asterisk Jebediah and Sarah were hosting a dinner party for the town's elite. Sarah, dressed in a shimmering gown, moved gracefully among the guests, engaging in polite conversation. Jebediah, uncomfortable in his stiff suit, felt like an outsider in his own home. He longed to escape to the barn, to the familiar scent of hay and horses. He struggled to reconcile these two images: Sarah, the embodiment of grace and refinement, and Clementine, the embodiment of warmth and practicality. He wondered if he was betraying Sarah's memory by allowing Clementine into his life, by allowing her to change the ranch, to change him. Asterisk flashback asterisk Jebediah was sitting by Sarah's bedside, holding her hand as she slipped away. She was pale and frail, her eyes filled with a quiet acceptance. "Don't mourn me forever, Jebediah," she whispered, her voice weak. "Find happiness again. Find someone who can fill your heart." Her words echoed in his mind, a gentle reminder that he deserved to be happy, that Sarah wouldn't want him to live in a perpetual state of grief. But finding happiness with someone so different from Sarah felt like a betrayal, a rejection of everything they had shared. He wrestled with guilt, with confusion, with the fear of letting go of the past. He knew he couldn't live in the past forever, but he didn't know how to embrace the present, how to open his heart to someone new. The ghosts of yesterday haunted him, whispering doubts and stirring up old wounds. He needed to find a way to honor Sarah's memory without sacrificing his own chance at happiness. He needed to find a way to reconcile his past with his present, to make peace with the love he had lost and the love he was beginning to find. Slowly but surely, Clementine's presence transformed the ranch. The house, once filled with shadows and dust, now radiated warmth and light. The aroma of freshly baked bread replaced the stale scent of loneliness. Laughter echoed through the rooms, chasing away the silence that had lingered for so long. Clementine had a knack for making the ordinary feel special. She turned simple meals into feasts, transforming the dining table into a place of connection and conversation. She mended the tattered curtains, adding colorful patches that brightened the room. She even coaxed Jebediah into helping her repaint the porch swing, a task he had been putting off for years. The garden, once a neglected patch of weeds, became a vibrant oasis. Clementine planted flowers of every color, attracting butterflies and hummingbirds. She grew vegetables that filled the pantry and provided fresh ingredients for her delicious meals. Jebediah found himself spending hours in the garden, marveling at Clementine's green thumb and the beauty she had created. But it wasn't just the physical changes that transformed the ranch. It was Clementine's spirit, her unwavering kindness, and her nurturing heart that truly made the difference. She had a way of seeing the best in everyone, of finding the silver lining in every cloud. She listened patiently to Jebediah's stories, offering words of comfort and understanding. She never judged him, never criticized him, never tried to change him. She simply accepted him for who he was, flaws and all. Jebediah found himself drawn to her warmth, her genuine goodness. He started to look forward to her smile, her laughter, her quiet presence. He realized that she wasn't just filling a void in his life. She was adding something new, something he hadn't even known he was missing. He started to see the ranch through her eyes, appreciating the beauty of the land, the strength of the animals, and the simple joys of everyday life. He started to feel grateful for the second chance he had been given, for the opportunity to love again. Clementine's kindness extended beyond the ranch. She befriended the lonely widow down the road, bringing her meals and offering her companionship. She volunteered at the local school, helping the children with their reading. She even organized a community potluck, bringing the townspeople together in a spirit of harmony and goodwill. Through her actions, Clementine showed Jebediah that love wasn't about erasing the past. It was about embracing the present and building a future filled with hope and kindness. She taught him that beauty wasn't just about appearances, it was about the goodness that resided within. And she showed him that even the most broken hearts could be healed with a little bit of love and a whole lot of kindness. The ranch was transforming, and so was Jebediah. The warmth of Clementine's spirit was melting away the ice around his heart, allowing him to feel again, to love again, to live again. The transformation of the ranch didn't go unnoticed by the townspeople of Harmony Creek. While some were genuinely happy for Jebediah, others couldn't resist the urge to gossip and judge. Old Mrs. Henderson, known for her sharp tongue and even sharper eyes, spearheaded the rumor mill, spreading tales of Jebediah's supposed madness and Clementine's supposed gold digging. "He's lost his senses, that's what he's done," she'd declare over her teacup at the general store. "Buying that woman at auction, it's just not right." Others chimed in, their voices laced with prejudice and disapproval. "She's probably just after his money," one woman whispered. "She'll eat him out of house and home," another added, echoing the cruel remarks from the auction. The whispers and stares followed Jebediah and Clementine whenever they ventured into town. Shopkeepers were curt, neighbors were distant, and children pointed and giggled. Clementine, who had already battled a lifetime of prejudice, found the small-town scrutiny particularly painful. "Maybe we should just stay at the ranch," she said to Jebediah one evening, her voice subdued. "Maybe it would be easier." Jebediah, his jaw tight with anger, refused to back down. "We won't let them run us out of town," he said, his voice firm. "We haven't done anything wrong." But the prejudice wasn't just limited to whispers and stares. One day, Clementine found a hateful note pinned to the door of the ranch house, scrawled in angry letters. "Get out, fat cow. You don't belong here." Clementine was devastated. She had worked so hard to make the ranch a home, to earn Jebediah's respect, to prove her worth. The note shattered her confidence and left her feeling vulnerable and unwanted. Jebediah, seeing her distress, was furious. He knew he had to do something to protect Clementine and to silence the town gossips. He couldn't let their prejudice destroy what they had built together. He decided to confront the townspeople, to stand up for Clementine, and to make it clear that they would not be bullied or intimidated. The town's expectations were clear. Jebediah should find a suitable wife, someone thin, someone refined, someone who fit their narrow definition of beauty. Clementine defied those expectations, and the town was determined to make them pay for it. Their resolve will be tested, their love challenged, and their future uncertain. The whispers had turned into open hostility, and Jebediah knew he had to act before things escalated further. He had to decide whether he would cave to societal pressure or stand by the woman who had brought light back into his life. Jebediah decided to address the town's prejudice head-on. He waited for the weekly town meeting, held in the community hall. He knew most of the gossips would be there, eager to spread their poison. He walked into the hall, Clementine by his side, his jaw set and his eyes filled with determination. The room fell silent as they entered. All eyes were on them, a mixture of curiosity and hostility in the air. Mrs. Henderson, perched on a chair near the front, glared at Clementine with open disdain. Jebediah cleared his throat and stepped forward, his voice echoing through the hall. "I have something to say," he announced, his gaze sweeping across the room. "Some of you have been spreading rumors and making life difficult for Clementine and me." He paused, taking a deep breath. "Clementine is a good woman," he continued, his voice rising with emotion. "She has brought life back to my ranch. She has brought joy back to my heart, and she has done nothing to deserve your scorn." He looked directly at Mrs. Henderson. "She is not after my money. She is not a burden, and she is not deserving of your hateful words." He turned to Clementine, his eyes filled with love and admiration. "Clementine, you are a kind, generous, and beautiful woman," he said, his voice soft but clear. "Your worth is not measured by your size, but by the goodness of your heart." A gasp went through the crowd. Jebediah had never spoken so openly, so passionately. He had always been a quiet, reserved man, but now he was standing up for what he believed in, for the woman he cared about. "Some of you may not understand why I brought Clementine here," he continued, addressing the crowd again. "But she has given me something I thought I had lost forever: hope. She has shown me that love can be found in the most unexpected places, and that beauty comes in all shapes and sizes." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the room. "If you can't accept Clementine for who she is," he said, his voice firm, "then you can't accept me either." He took Clementine's hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "We are staying in Harmony Creek," he declared, his voice ringing with conviction. "And we will not be driven out by your prejudice." Heads turned, and murmurs spread through the crowd. Some people looked ashamed, others looked defiant, but no one dared to speak out against him. Jebediah had spoken his truth, and his words had resonated with at least a few people in the room. He had defended Clementine, publicly acknowledging her value and her inner beauty, and in doing so, he had challenged the town's narrow-minded views and paved the way for a more accepting future. Whether the town would change remained to be seen, but Jebediah had made his stand. He would not let prejudice win. The storm hit Harmony Creek with a vengeance. Dark clouds gathered overhead, the wind howled like a banshee, and the rain lashed down in sheets. The creek overflowed its banks, flooding the low-lying areas of the ranch. The animals, sensing the danger, grew restless and agitated. Jebediah, battling the wind and rain, tried to secure the barn doors, but the wind was too strong. One of the doors ripped from its hinges, threatening to collapse the entire structure. He struggled to hold it in place, but his strength was waning. "Clementine," he shouted, his voice barely audible above the roar of the storm. "Help me with this door." Clementine, who had been busy securing the chickens, rushed to his side. She assessed the situation quickly, her eyes scanning the barn and the surrounding area. "We need to brace it," she said, her voice calm and decisive. "Give me some planks and some rope." Jebediah, impressed by her quick thinking, followed her instructions. Together, they worked tirelessly, battling the wind and rain, to brace the barn door and prevent it from collapsing. Clementine, despite her size, was surprisingly strong and agile. She climbed onto the roof of the barn, securing the ropes and planks with expert skill. Just when they thought they had secured the barn, they heard a frantic whinnying from the horse paddock. One of the horses, a young mare named Belle, had gotten tangled in the barbed wire fence. She was panicking, thrashing wildly, and bleeding profusely. "We have to get her out," Clementine said, her voice filled with concern. "She'll hurt herself even more if we don't." Jebediah hesitated. The storm was raging, the ground was slippery, and Belle was dangerous when agitated. "It's too risky," he said. "We'll have to wait until the storm passes." Clementine shook her head. "We can't wait," she said. "She could bleed to death." Without hesitation, she grabbed a pair of wire cutters and ventured into the paddock. Jebediah watched, his heart pounding with fear. Clementine approached Belle cautiously, speaking to her in soothing tones. Slowly, she calmed the frightened mare and began to cut away the barbed wire. Belle, sensing Clementine's compassion, stood still, allowing her to work. Finally, Clementine freed her from the tangled wire. She led Belle back to the barn, where she cleaned her wounds and applied a soothing ointment. Jebediah watched in amazement as Clementine tended to Belle, her touch gentle and reassuring. He realized that she wasn't just strong and resourceful, she was also incredibly brave and compassionate. He had underestimated her, judged her based on her appearance, and he was ashamed of himself. The storm eventually passed, leaving behind a trail of destruction. But the ranch had survived, thanks to Clementine's quick thinking and resourcefulness. She had saved the barn, she had saved Belle, and she had proven her worth beyond any doubt. Jebediah knew then that Clementine wasn't just a hired hand. She was a hero, and she was quickly becoming something much more to him. After the storm, the ranch was a mess. Fallen branches littered the yard, mud caked the porch, and the air hung heavy with the scent of wet earth. Jebediah and Clementine worked side by side, cleaning up the debris and assessing the damage. As they worked, Jebediah couldn't help but notice Clementine's quiet strength and unwavering spirit. She never complained, never faltered, never lost her sense of humor. He was struck by her resilience, her ability to find joy even in the midst of hardship. That evening, after a long day of hard work, they sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery hues. The air was still and peaceful, a welcome contrast to the chaos of the storm. "Thank you, Clementine," Jebediah said, his voice sincere. "You saved the ranch today. You saved Belle." Clementine shrugged, her cheeks flushed. "It was nothing," she said, avoiding his gaze. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Jebediah said, his voice firm. "Not just anyone. You were brave, you were quick, and you were kind. You're a remarkable woman, Clementine." Clementine looked up at him, her eyes shining with emotion. "Thank you, Jebediah," she whispered. "That means a lot to me." A long silence stretched between them, filled only with the chirping of crickets and the gentle sway of the porch swing. Jebediah found himself drawn to Clementine, to her warmth, her goodness, her inner beauty. He reached out and took her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. Clementine didn't pull away. She looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. He could see the vulnerability in her gaze, the longing for connection, the fear of rejection. He squeezed her hand gently, reassuring her. "Clementine," he said, his voice soft. He hesitated, unsure of how to express his feelings. "I care about you, Clementine, more than I thought possible." Clementine's eyes filled with tears. "I care about you too, Jebediah," she said, her voice trembling. "More than I can say." He leaned closer, his gaze fixed on her face. He saw the kindness in her eyes, the strength in her jaw, the beauty in her smile. He realized that he wasn't just grateful for her help, he was falling in love with her. He gently cupped her face in his hands, his touch tender and reverent. "Can I kiss you, Clementine?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Clementine nodded, her eyes closing. Jebediah leaned in and kissed her, his lips brushing against hers. The kiss was soft and tentative at first, then grew deeper and more passionate. It was a kiss filled with gratitude, with longing, with the promise of a new beginning. As they broke apart, they looked at each other, their eyes filled with wonder and awe. They had both been through so much. They had both carried so much pain. But in that moment, in that tender embrace, they found solace, they found comfort, they found love. They realized that their feelings for each other had grown deeper than friendship. A new chapter was beginning. The days that followed were filled with a quiet happiness. Jebediah and Clementine worked together, laughed together, and shared their dreams and fears with each other. They were building a life together, brick by brick, filled with love, respect, and understanding. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Jebediah took Clementine's hand, his gaze serious. "Clementine," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "I need to tell you something." Clementine looked at him, her heart pounding in her chest. She sensed the weight of his words, the depth of his feelings. "I love you, Clementine," Jebediah confessed, his eyes shining with sincerity. "I never thought I could love again, not after Sarah. But you have healed my heart. You have shown me a different kind of love, a love that is strong and true and unwavering." He paused, taking a deep breath. "Sarah was a wonderful woman," he continued, "but our love was different. It was a love built on elegance and refinement, on shared interests and social expectations. But our love, Clementine, it's a love built on something deeper, something more real. It's a love built on kindness, on compassion, on acceptance. It's a love that sees beyond appearances, that cherishes the inner beauty, that celebrates the strength of the human spirit." He squeezed her hand gently. "You have brought light back into my life, Clementine," he said, his voice soft. "You have shown me that it's okay to laugh again, to dream again, to love again. You have taught me that it's okay to be happy, even after loss. You have given me a gift I can never repay." Clementine's eyes were filled with tears. She had waited so long to hear those words, to feel that kind of love. She had always felt like she was too much, too big, too different to be loved. But Jebediah had seen past her flaws, had embraced her for who she was, had shown her that she was worthy of love. "Oh, Jebediah," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I love you too. I never thought I could find someone who would love me for who I am, someone who would see past my size, someone who would cherish my heart." She reached out and cupped his face in her hands, her touch gentle and reverent. "You have given me a gift too, Jebediah," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "You have given me a home, you have given me a purpose, and you have given me your heart. You have shown me that it's okay to be myself, to embrace my strengths, and to love without reservation." They embraced their hearts, hearts beating in unison, a symphony of love and acceptance. Clementine knew that loving Jebediah wouldn't be easy. He was still haunted by the memory of Sarah, still scarred by the grief of his loss. But she was willing to be patient, to be understanding, to give him the time and space he needed to heal completely. She accepted him for who he was, a hard-working cowboy with a kind heart, a man who had known sorrow and loss, but who was still capable of love and joy. She saw past his rough exterior, past his quiet demeanor, and saw the goodness that resided within. And she found solace in his acceptance of her. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen, truly valued, truly loved for who she was, not for who she should be. Jebediah didn't try to change her, didn't try to mold her into someone else's image. He loved her for her strength, her kindness, her resilience, her unwavering spirit. He loved her for her curves, her laughter, her generous heart. She had spent so many years hiding, ashamed of her size, afraid of rejection. But Jebediah had shown her that she was beautiful inside and out. He had given her the courage to embrace her true self, to love without reservation, to live without fear. "I know it won't always be easy," Clementine said, breaking the silence. "We'll face challenges. We'll face prejudice. We'll face doubts. But as long as we have each other, we can overcome anything." Jebediah squeezed her hand, his eyes filled with love and admiration. "I know," he said, "and I promise you, Clementine, I will always be here for you. I will always stand by you, no matter what." They spent the rest of the evening talking, sharing their hopes and dreams for the future. They talked about renovating the ranch house, planting a new orchard, and maybe even starting a family. They talked about facing the town's prejudice together, about proving that love knows no boundaries, no limitations. As the night drew to a close, they walked hand in hand to Clementine's room. Jebediah paused at the door, his gaze lingering on her face. "Good night, Clementine," he said, his voice soft. "I love you." "Good night, Jebediah," Clementine replied, her eyes shining with happiness. "I love you too." Jebediah leaned in and kissed her gently on the forehead, then turned and walked away. Clementine closed the door behind him, her heart overflowing with joy. She knew that their journey wouldn't be easy, but she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, as long as she had Jebediah by her side. She found comfort in the knowledge that she was truly loved, truly accepted, and truly home. The following months brought both challenges and triumphs. The townspeople of Harmony Creek slowly began to accept Jebediah and Clementine, their hearts softened by Clementine's unwavering kindness and Jebediah's steadfast love. Some remained closed-minded, clinging to their prejudices, but their voices were drowned out by the growing chorus of acceptance and support. Jebediah and Clementine faced every obstacle together, hand in hand, their love growing stronger with each passing day. They renovated the ranch house, transforming it into a cozy and welcoming home filled with laughter and warmth. They planted a new orchard, filling the air with the sweet scent of blossoms. They even started a small vegetable garden, sharing their bounty with the less fortunate in town. One sunny afternoon, Jebediah and Clementine stood on the porch, watching the children play in the yard. They had adopted 2 orphan siblings, a young boy named Billy and a little girl named Susie, bringing joy and laughter back into the ranch. Jebediah put his arm around Clementine, pulling her close. "I never thought I could be this happy again," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "You have given me a life I never dreamed possible." Clementine smiled, her eyes shining with love. "You have given me the same, Jebediah," she said. "You have shown me that love is the most important thing in the world, and that it can conquer anything." They looked out at their ranch, at their children, at their life together, and knew that they had created something truly special. They had defied societal norms. They had embraced their unconventional love, and they had found happiness in each other's company. Their love story became a legend in Harmony Creek, a testament to the power of kindness, acceptance, and unwavering love. It was a story that was told and retold, inspiring others to open their hearts, to challenge their prejudices, and to embrace the beauty of diversity. Jebediah and Clementine lived a long and happy life together, surrounded by love, laughter, and the blessings of family and friends. They taught their children the importance of compassion, empathy, and standing up for what is right. They showed them that true beauty comes from within, and that love knows no boundaries. And as they grew old, they held each other close, cherishing every moment, grateful for the love they had found, the life they had built, and the legacy they had created. Their story was a reminder that even in the most unlikely of circumstances, love can blossom, hearts can heal, and happiness can be found. All it takes is a little bit of kindness, a little bit of courage, and a whole lot of love. Their unconventional beginning led to an extraordinary life, a life filled with love, acceptance, and the unwavering belief in the power of the human heart. Their love story echoed through the generations, a timeless reminder that love sees no size, no shape, no color, only the beauty within.